Okay, good morning. We are Reish Nun Bet. We're starting with Seif Hey, Siman of Pidyon Shvuyim, right? It's here because we use it for we use tzedakah money for Pidyon Shvuyim. Normal. Okay. I'll just mention a famous story. The kids are not. I'm not going to say the whole story of Maharami Rottenberg. I'm sure you're all familiar. So they wanted to redeem. He was taken as captive, ransom for money, and he was huge Talmud Chacham. According to the halacha, you would be able to pay more than his person is worth, an exorbitant amount. However, he insisted not to be redeemed because he did not want it to become regular practice. And so in the end, he died in prison, never got redeemed until after he died. And then they paid a ransom for his body. Okay. Hey, inside. Ein mavrichim hashavuyim. Okay. Difficult topic. Do we try and rescue a hostage, one who's captive? So the halacha says, Chazal or metakin mipnei tikun olam shelo yu ha'ovim machmidim olam aleim umarbim b'shmiratam. So again, Lamaisa, every case has to be analyzed. All the sides and pluses and minuses, but the halacha says we don't try and rescue them, because what's going to end up happening, even if there's only one captive right now, because there might be more captives in the future, we do not want to try and rescue them, because then it's going to cause the captors to be overly difficult and overly watch them and chain them up and make things much worse for them. Again, if it can't get any worse, maybe it doesn't apply. There's obviously different considerations, but that's in general. In the Pischei Tshuva, he just quotes from the Chavas Yair. He says, a person certainly can do whatever he can to escape himself. Vav. Mi shemachar atzmo lagoyim o shelo v'mehem v'shavu oto be'avato. A person sold himself to be a captive. Yeah, he was in debt. Or he borrowed money, and because he wasn't paying it back, the loan, they captured him and held him ransom. So pam rishona u'shniya podimoto. So we do take tzedakah money and redeem him up to 2 times. But if he keeps doing this, he's making a business out of it, or he just can't control himself and he gets himself in difficult situations. So then shlishit ein podim oto. There's a limit. We don't rescue him with our money the 3rd time. Aval podim et habanim la'achar mitat avihem. We redeem his children after he dies. What does that mean? It means even if they didn't only capture the father for his money, they're also holding his kids ransom altogether. So since they're all together, whereas the assumption is that the father is going to keep them from. But if they cannot be religious and we're afraid they're going to assimilate, even if, as the Shach points this out, even if the father is still alive, we do redeem the children if we're afraid they're going to intermarry and lose their Judaism because of where they are. But if they're going to kill him, so then even if it happened more than 2 times, more than 3 times, then we still redeem him. So this we had a little bit earlier, that if someone is not keeping the mitzvos lahachis, to show God that he's angry at him and he doesn't want to keep the mitzvot, so then we no longer redeem him. Okay, that's if he does it, again, lahachis. If he has kosher food and non-kosher food, and just despite the Kadosh Baruch Hu, he chooses to eat the non-kosher. Zayin, Eved Shenishpa. Now, if you have an Eved becomes a captive, the captors, they capture an Eved, a slave. This is a Jewish slave. Hoyo, what does a Jewish slave mean? It means he was a non-Jew, like an Eved Kanani, and then he converts and becomes a slave to a Jewish family, but he converts to keep the mitzvot. So he becomes a full, well, depends in what category. He's a full Jew in some ways, not 100% in all ways. He's not chayav, he's chayav in mitzvahs like a woman, but he gets his bris milah, he goes to Tovel, v'tavel l'shem avdut, but if he does it l'shem avdut, v'kibel alav mitzvot, so he does a proper conversion as an Eved, and a Jewish, to become like a, it's called an Eved Kanani, and he's accepting upon himself all the mitzvot. So he's only chayiv to the level of an Isha, but he accepts himself all the mitzvot, and obviously, and if he goes free, then he'll be chayiv just like a regular, right? If the owner frees him, then he'll be chayiv like a regular Jew. So then, Podim oto ki Yisrael shenishba. So we treat him the same for the halachas of Pidyon Shvuyim. Again, there might be a hierarchy, but it's still the same halacha that we are podehim. We redeem him. Okay?
So that you can explain that the woman has full Kedusha Israel with certain exemptions from this. See, Kedusha Israel with certain obligations.
Evet shenishba hoel, no, chet. Podim ha'isha kodem ha'ish. Now, the rule is that if you have a chance to redeem a man or a woman, who comes first? The woman. Hoel v'tava, no, I skipped. V'im regilim v'mishkav zachor podim ha'ish kodem. Because of sexual relations in a rape in prison or a captivity, so there normally we worry about the woman more than the man. So the woman gets freed first, and then you take care of the man. But if you're in a society where it's backwards and you're worried about mishkav zachor, so then you worry
because it's a bigger gnai for a man. So then that's what
you don't have to be more. Okay, fine. Haga. Ve'im shneim rotzim litvoa benahar hatzala teish kodem. So this just means if they're both in, I don't know what girsa you have. You probably have the same one I do. Some have a ve'im shneim tovim benahar, and you see the taz. It just means they're both in the same level of sakana, and they're both about to drown. And who comes first? The psak and the Mishnah is the man comes first, the end of Harios. And so the Ovadim Bar Tanura and the Taz explain because the man is chayiv and more mitzvahs. So just because of the halachic definition of the chayiv and more mitzvahs, that's the kedima. That's who you give first to. By shiv captive, it's different unless it is the same halacha that the man is first. If in captivity you're expecting both of them, or one of them is likely to die. If one of them is likely to get killed, so then it goes back to that same Salah Ha'ish Kodem. Tet. But again, whenever it comes to Tsa'ar and Busha and things like that, that takes, so in those areas, so then generally speaking, the woman will always take precedence. Tet. Hu v'aviv v'rabba v'shevi. So there's three people in prison together. There's the person, his father, and his Rebbe. So who called him l'rabba? So first, who comes first? That is chayav kodmim. So the person himself comes first. Then comes his Rebbe. The Rabbo kodem la'aviv. And then your Rebbe comes before your father. That's if your father didn't teach you. Okay, and if the Shach even also says if your father is also a chacham, then even if your Rebbe is a greater chacham, but your father is also a chacham, so then your father is first. So that's the order of those three. Imo kodemet lakulam. Now, if your mother is there, again, because she is a woman, so she becomes first before all of them. Okay, let's go on to Yud. Im ish ve'ishto shavuyim. So a man and his wife, they get captive together. So then ishto kodemet lo. So again, his wife comes first, right? Woman first. Ubeitin yordim lenechasav. And the Beis Din, they go to his pocketbook, his bank account, and they pay for her from his money. They force him to. Upodim ota va'afilo omed v'tziveach al tif. What? Soveach al tiftua minichsai. Ein shomim lo. Even he's like, I'm happy where my wife is. Don't redeem her. I don't want to pay for it. There you go. So then Chazal say, no, doesn't matter. You have to pay. He has a chiyuv to pay. The only amount that there's a chiyuv to pay, and that we don't take it from our money, we take it from his money, not from the tzibur. You take it from him. It's also on the chiyuv ksula, fine. So he has to pay from his pocket, and we don't make it a burden on the tzibur. But it's the only amount that you can force someone to pay is kedei damav. Right? Perhaps he's allowed to pay as much money as he wants. Right? We saw that. So he's allowed to pay more than she's worth, or whatever, an exorbitant amount. Really, there's no real price tag on a person's life, but it's well, whatever is considered not to overpay. There's no sakana nefashos. Sakanas nefashos. There's always a level. Who comes? So you have to pay from his pocketbook, but you can only force somebody kedei dama, that amount. Good Aleph. Misha nishba v'yesh lo nechasim ve'eno rotzet liftot atzmo podim oto bal korcho. Now, let's say a person gets captive. We're back to the one person on his own, and he doesn't want to pay from his own money. He has no choice. We pay for him. Right? We have an obligation to repose him. We have no reason to pay from our, it's the city tzedakah fund. We make it come out of his pocket. Okay, Yud bet ha'av chayav liftot et haben eat le la'av leit le leben. So normally, again, right? So I'll just read the words. The father is chayav to redeem his son, and if his son can't pay for it, so the father has to pay for it. Really, the money really should come from the person himself. But if he can't, so then we make the father pay again, and not from the tzibur. Okay, let's keep going. Hagav. Vuadin karov acher. And now that's really the halacha with any karov, any relative. Karov kodem. Now, the closer you are, the more of a chiyuv we're going to come collect. You're the one who's going to have to pay. The closer relative is going to be the one that has to pay. We don't let a relative get away with not paying. Let him keep his money and stay rich, and make the tzibur pay for the relative. The financial obligation first goes on the relative before it goes on the tzibur, and the tzibur can force that. Right, but you're talking about regular tzedakah. So I don't know to what extent you force a relative to help out. There's an obligation on that person to help out a relative more than someone else. I'm not sure about forcing. If you could so we do force. I'm not sure. I don't know. Good question. Now, when a person redeems somebody, so now the one who got redeemed has to pay him back. It's not just can't just have someone else pay for you and then say, sorry, you paid for it, it's your loss. You don't say when a person uses his own money to chase away a lion from his property. So but here we don't say he has to pay immediately. The one who got redeemed, there's no way out. It's a little bit of a chutzpah, but you can't say, Anit sayet lecha ladin. So let's go to a beis din. Fine, it's not a problem. I understand. Let's go to a beis din. Let them figure it out. V'im isle achar kach taina alav yitbe'enu ladin. Tevelo ze ein adam podet chavero. You can't wait for a beis din. The facts are the facts. As long as if the facts are clear, one is 100% obligated to pay 100%. Now, afterwards, if a person thinks, maybe he should have paid for it, he should have paid part of it, and I shouldn't have to pay the whole amount, you can take him to a beis din afterwards. But you have to initially pay right away. This is if he has the money, sure. No, if the one who was redeemed doesn't have any money, then he doesn't have to, he can't pay, he doesn't. He's not mechuyev to what? If he,
He wants to pay. 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 He wants to pay.
It's a good question. How far do you take a debt? I don't know. But he does have to sell things. If he has assets, he does have to sell assets. We're going to see in a moment. It's similar to tzedakah. We're going to see this in the next siman. What do you have to sell? Okay, Reish Nun Gimel. Mi shehu ra'ui. Here, I'll just point out the shock. Interesting. When it comes to nichse yetomi, just the door's closed, huh? When it comes to nichse yetomi, an orphan, do you have, let's say, an orphan, if they get captive and you pay money to redeem an orphan, so on that, you're allowed to take their money right away. Normally, we don't go collect from orphans because there's two reasons why here we would collect immediately. The Shach points out. Number one is as a technicality, we can only collect because you need an edus. You need edus to come to court to say that the yatomim, the orphans, are chayav to pay. But the halacha by orphans are we treat them like they're not there, and you can't have an edus if they're not, if the dependents or whatever, they're not there. So therefore, they get off the hook, sort of on a technicality. But here we don't need edus. It's midaraisa, we're chayav to redeem them, and I guess it's clear what happened, and so therefore we take their money for it. It also says if we don't take their money now and we wait till they become old enough, then people are not going to want to redeem them. There'll be a lack of funds, or people are like, I don't know if they're going to pay me. I mean, we know how people are. If you say pay me in 20 years or whatever it is, there's a good chance you'll never get paid back. So otherwise, nobody will redeem them, and so that's the halach. Okay, Reish and Gimel mihu ra'ui litol tzedakah. Who do we take tzedakah from? Who's able to take tzedakah? Aleph. Mi sheyesh lo mazon shtei seudot lo yitol me'atamchui. Person has food for 2 meals is not allowed to take from the tamchui. Tamchui is the set aside tzedakah fund that people take once a day for 2 meals. So if you have what? Like a soup kitchen? Okay. So I don't know if you take food home, but yeah, maybe. Same idea. Okay. It's like a modern day soup kitchen. You take food for the day. So then you can't start go in there at the shopping cart and start taking food for the week because that's what it's not designated for. Okay. Mazon arba asrei seudot. What if a person has food for a week? That's 14 meals. That's the week. Lo yitol me'akupa. If he has that much, but you don't take money from the tzedakah fund called the kupa, because the kupa is the fund that you're supposed to take once a week, enough food for the week. That's right, whatever it's for. V'im yeshlo matayim zuz. If a person has matayim zuz in his bank account, cash, v'eino nosev v'notein behem, or sheyeshlo hamishim zuz v'hu nosev v'notein behem, or if he has 50,000 zuz and 50 zuz, and he's using that to buy and sell, I don't know, food, flowers, whatever he's commerce, business. Right. He's using the cash flow for the business is 50,000. He has that 50. I keep saying thousand. Sorry, 50. Chamishim zuz, and he is, but he's using that to make a profit out of it. So then that's enough. That's enough amount. Lo yitol tzedakah. He's not allowed to take tzedakah. We don't give him tzedakah. Okay. Now, 200 zuz, that's the amount that was in those days considered the amount a person needs to live off of for a year. But just to get a little conceptual of what that is. Now, what happens if you're not running this cash business and you don't have 200 zuz, you have 199. You're not using it for business. So you're allowed to take tzedakah because you don't have that much cash. And once you're allowed to take, if someone writes you a check or hands you a bag of cash, you're allowed to take even 1,000. That's why I keep getting mixed up. But you're allowed to take way more. In other words, once you're allowed to take, you're allowed to take. Okay, Haga. Umi sheholech mi beito v'nosea meir lekabetz kol haderech sheya b'daito lisa kishalach mi beito nikra pa'amachas. If you go on the trip to go collect for a week or a month, whatever it is, and you're traveling, as long as you're traveling, you can keep on taking money, even though now you have more than 200 in your pocket, because you're still on that one trip. But once, even in one city, you made 200. You can keep on collecting. But once you get your 200 and you're back home, or you're home and you get your 200, so then you can't collect anymore. So obviously it's more lucrative to be traveling. Now let's say you have 200, you have a lot, but you owe that money to somebody. So it's not really free cash. You're in debt. Or you have, or it's already been designated, that money, for the ksuba. The box says, let's say you set aside kalim and jewelry, and right, you found out how much they are, and when you got married, you said this is for the ksuba. So that is not, whatever is designated for, or you have a cholover designated for the ksuba, that is not considered free cash, and that's not, and so therefore it's not in the cheshbon. So if that's all you have, then you don't have 200 free, and so therefore you can keep on collecting. Now let's say you have a house with lots of dishes, but you don't have 200 cash. You're allowed to take, because the kalim that you have in the house are necessary for you to live. Now, so we don't make you sell everything in your house, even your expensive silver and gold. However, wait, so that's the basics. Kesef and zahav that you don't have to sell, that's only if it's the basic klei, that's what you need. I guess if you have your silver cutlery, things like that, so then you don't have to. Aval, but then a megara, so that's a kli that's used for crushing chita. In other words, it's not really your eating utensils. It's before. Oh no, sorry, megara. That's your a grater, and I don't know how to pronounce this. An eli or ali. That's the crusher for the chita. That's like pre-eating foods. Okay, so then shehem shel kesef, and even if those are from kesef, so then mokram, you have to sell them. V'lo mi'atzedakah, you can't take from tzedakah if you have extraneous silver and jewelry that you don't need. V'hu for eating, or your basics for wearing. V'hu de'ei mechayven until imkor klei tashmishav shel kesef v'zav. When do we say you don't have to sell your kesef and zav? Let's just finish with davka. That's if you don't need to take from the kupa of al notel beseter miyachidim. But that's only if you are allowed to collect a little bit from individuals. But if you come to take from the kupa shel tzedakah, that's what you take once a week. So then, so the kupa from tzedakah, it's really for the people who really don't have anything. You don't have just for food for a week, and you don't have possessions. If you have a little bit of possessions, even if it's silver, so then you are allowed to take, but you can't take from like the emergency. Kilu, that's kupa is a little bit like an emergency tzedakah fund. You don't have food for a week to eat, that you take. But from there you can't take if you have silver cutlery. We'll finish the rest. A couple of things about what you can sell or not, but we'll finish tomorrow.